then this is where in the classroom where Bill's going to be holding the actual class today. And so this is where your orientation is going to happen. He's got the front of this exposed, so you can see how the air brakes. He starts it up, and you can see how the air brake system works. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, nice. All right in the class.
Yeah. Yep. Are you looking at going over the road?
No. I gotta take care of my mom. She's got issues.
Okay.
Oh. Oh, no, I just didn't know, I thought we moved the bag, so I thought I just couldn't find the bag. If you're all.
So what are you doing now? I didn't hear the other day that I was watching you, frustrated how why you were.
Backup.
Say what?
On a backup.
Well, I don't need a backup. Where'd you get that?
In the spare cable drawer.
Okay, welcome. I'm Bill Collins, the owner of the school. I have a class watching us remotely, our Wisconsin location. We have this going over there too. Now you all have one of these. Okay. Are you all doing Class A or Class B?
A.
A?
Hey.
A? A? Okay. A what? Sounds like a bunch of Canadians. Anybody? Is everybody a Minnesota resident?
Yep.
Minnesota? Okay. All right. So that makes it simple. Okay. Josh, how do we want people over in Hudson to text over here?
Do you want the?
Why don't you just let's use the 707,
Okay.
and then if you get something before you leave, let me know. Just text it to me. Just forward it to me.
Okay. So I mean, okay. So I'll forward all the questions to you.
Yeah.
Sure. Not bad.
That's
I
not
can
a
do
good
that.
idea. All right.
Get started, have a seat.
Okay. So it's 707-4672, right?
That's correct.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Good afternoon, welcome. I'm Bill Collins, the owner of the school. For those of you in Hudson, there is a number that you can text questions to that I can get. Number 651-707-4672. So write that number down if you would, please. 651-707-4672. Text any questions you have to me at that phone number. Okay. All right. So we're here today to talk about the CDL pre-trip test, the permit test, I should say, be more correct. But first of all, let's go through the mechanics of what it takes to get the permit. If you would grab this handout that's in the front of your workbook that we've given you, let's go over this material. So first of all, to get your permit, you need a Class D driver's license. And by need a license, I mean you need to have a valid picture ID license in your possession. These guys are so anal. You know, like let's say that someone moves here from Iowa and they want to switch their license and get a CDL permit. They have to wait for their license to come in the mail before they'll give them the permit. They can't do it until they actually physically get the license in their possession. Okay. So you got to have a valid regular car license, and then you're going to need either a valid passport, or a certified birth certificate. What is a certified birth certificate?
One with the stamp on it.
Exactly. It's got the little stamp on it. Again, these guys are so anal, they will not accept birth certificate, the original birth certificate. The one you got with your little feet print on it from your birth, they won't accept that. They want the certified one. Okay? Now, the certified birth certificates, for the most part, can be obtained online some way, fashion, or another. So you need either, again, the valid passport or a certified birth certificate. You're going to need it to get your permit. You're going to need it to get your license. You're going to need it again to renew down the road. So every time I renew my CDL, I have to come in with my passport or my certified birth certificate all over again. Okay. All right. Are you doing Class A or Class B?
Class A.
Okay. So for Class A, there are 3 knowledge tests you have to take. General knowledge, air brakes, assuming you're using a vehicle with air brakes for your Class A, and then combinations. So 3 knowledge tests. For B, it would be 2 of them, general knowledge and air brakes. You have to score 80% on each test in order to pass. The general knowledge quiz has 50 questions to it. Combinations has 20, and air brakes has 30. So you add them all up, that's 100 questions, right? And you have to pass each one separately. The green book that we're giving you today has all of the sections that need to be studied for the Class A or Class B, but Class A or B permit test, okay? This manual is published by American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. We are giving you just the sections you need to study for the permit test. So 4 is missing. That's because that's buses. 7, 8, and 9, that's doubles, triples, tankers, and hazmat. 9 is hazmat. 10, 11, and 12 are on the road test. So we have not included those in here. There's also a section before the regular sections on school bus. That's not in there either. But if you want to look at the whole manual, I would suggest going online to do that. The manual is available at mindriveinfo.org. That address is there on your handout. We also suggest cdltest.co as a practice test website. There are a lot of practice tests out there, and very few of them are accurate. I've heard from many, many people that...
Got one more for you.
Okay.
Thought I was going to leave them in the test.
Hey, Josh,
Yep.
is there a way that you could boot up this on the tablet?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Could you do it on a tablet?
Yeah, you want me to bring that in here?
Yeah, so that I can
Of course.
see which page
Give
I'm
me
on.
2 minutes.
All right, thank you. Welcome. Are you doing Class A or Class B?
Class A.
Okay, and are you a Minnesota resident?
Yep.
Okay, good. We're talking about the handout that's in the inside of that booklet there. Okay. So cdltest.co is the website I'd recommend you use for practice tests. Again, I've had a lot of complaints from people over the years. Oh, I don't understand. I do these practice tests, and I pass the practice test, and I go take the real test, and I fail the thing. What the heck's going on? Well, if the practice test is no good, you're wasting your time. And be advised of this, dmv.org is not a government website. I can't tell you how many times I've had people say, yeah, I went to the state website and took the practice test. I go, what are you talking about? The state doesn't have a practice test. Yeah, they do. No, they don't. Yeah, they do. dmv.org. dmv.org is not the state of Minnesota. It's not any state. It's somebody that was smart enough to grab that website way back when the internet started, and they're taking advantage of it, and they sell stuff, okay? So I wouldn't bother with dmv.org.
I explained back in 2010 when I failed the test that they gave me that
Yep,
practice test.
exactly. So here, that's one of the reasons we do this class, is to give people accurate information, okay? All right, now again, the manual being available online, you can access that through our website also. let me show you this. If you go to our website, interstatedriving.com, you go to resources, and you'll see the manual down here, right there on our website. Now, there's a couple of things that I like about the online manual. One of the things I like is that I can do this. Now I can read it. Okay. And then the search engine. I really like the search engine on the manual because if it will search for only what you type in. So I'm going to type in slack adjusters, the plural, and it will only find that. It doesn't find the word lack. It doesn't find the word just. It finds no variation, only what exactly I've typed in. So that helps you narrow the search and find exactly what you're looking for. Okay. So I like the online manual. I find it to be very helpful. Okay. The state also has an audio file of the manual. Now that's helpful too. Let's do this.
Audio file on your website?
No, on the state.
On the state.
Yeah. So to get to that, we need to hang on. We need to go to mindriveinfo.org. And you go down here under More Documents. And that's where you find the manual. See the manual right there? But if you scroll down, you can get to all of the sections in the manual as an audio file. So
during the pre-trip inspection, you must show that the vehicle is safe to drive. You will have to walk around the vehicle and point to or touch each item and explain to the examiner what you are checking and why.
So you get the point? The manual is available as an audio file, and it will read you each section that you want.
Study the following vehicle parts for the type of vehicle you will be using during the CDL skills test.
Okay? Now, let me show you this. So the sections that you need to study sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Section 6 is 43 minutes. Section 5 is 42 minutes. So you got about an hour and a half invested there. Section 1 is 41 minutes. So now you're at 2 hours and 15 minutes. Section 3 is 13 minutes. So now you're about 2.5 hours, right? And then section 2.
3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I like watching people's expression on their face when they see that. 3 hours and 15 minutes? So you're looking at a total of 6 hours. If you're going to read this thing, I mean, and seriously read it, you're looking at 6 hours. Do most people spend 6 hours reading this thing?
No.
No. Okay? They get about 40 minutes into the thing, and then pretty soon it starts to be skimming and head nods and trying to stay awake through the thing, right? So one of the things that I'm going to do for you is I'm going to give you a way to hone in on exactly what you need. Got it?
Yep.
Got it.
Is the audio working in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I turned it on and it works fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I was getting feedback on that other cord. That's why I had to pitch
Okay,
that other
yeah,
cord.
so that backup cord should be fine, then I'll just
right.
exchange out with the other one.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now, the audio file. I really see that as a powerful learning tool. I'm a strong believer in audio files. Case in point, complete the following sentence for me, please. Save big money at... Who didn't know that? Now, you knew that because you've heard it so many times. It's as simple as that, okay? So, if you find reading this thing to be laborious, tedious, and boring to the point where you're not retaining anything, try listening to it. Okay. Maybe play this and watch the ball game with the audio on the ball game off. I mean, who cares? The announcers are wrong half the time anyway, right? They miss most of the penalties. You know? It's like there's a flag. There's a flag. Anyway. So do what you can to take advantage of that because, again, it's a very powerful learning device.
Do you
All right.
have the full link for the audio file?
That's at mindriveinfo.org.
Yeah.
So you go to the way that works. Let me back this up. So if you go to mindriveinfo.org, there's their website.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what you do is scroll down under Documents and go to More Documents.
Okay.
Right? Then scroll down from there and you'll find the audio file.
It's going to documents on the bottom.
Yeah, so you want More Documents. See what's showing up here. So that is that the main page that came up?
Yeah,
That's mindriveinfo.org.
maybe.
No, that's what it said. See, here's a. Let's try this page there, which says DBS.
Okay.
That's an online one. Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
So then
that
it's
looks
right
like
down
yours.
there.
Documents, more documents.
Yeah, More Documents. And then you can scroll down and find the audio. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Okay, so back to the handout. 1 permit test per day allowed in any one subject. So you can't take multiple tests on any one subject in any given day. And don't go to an exam station in the morning, fail a test, and then drive to a different exam station expecting you'll be able to sneak through because they do put this in a computer. Your first and second attempt at any of these tests is free. If you fail something twice, then they start charging you $10 for each subsequent visit. Good news is you can take it as many times as you want. In Wisconsin, they actually limit people to 5 attempts, and then they shut them off. Okay, but in Minnesota, you can take as many attempts as you want at the thing. Okay, but you will pay $10 for the third test on. All right. Then the other thing, the next thing here, the test is available on paper or with a computer. Most of the exam stations will require you to take the first test on a computer. Now, the computers do have headphones. A minute ago, I was telling you that I like audio files as a learning tool. I don't like audio files for testing. And the reason that I don't is when you take a test, you have to read the question very carefully in order to dissect it. You know, you understand something. Anybody that writes test questions is writing them in a way not to make it simple and to make it easy for you to get the correct answer. They always throw a twist in it to try to throw you off track. For example, they may ask you, what is the proper tread depth for tires other than the front tires? Well, what's the correct answer?
230 seconds.
230 seconds. Sometimes people will answer 430 seconds. Why? Because they hear tread depth and front tires. They miss 2 words, other than. You miss those 2 words, you get the wrong answer. That's why they did it. Why didn't they just ask you, what's the proper tread depth for rear tires? Why did they say, what's the proper tread depth for tires other than front tires? Why did they do it that way? To try to get you a little off track so you get the wrong answer. The questions that I personally struggle with the most are questions that ask me for the wrong response. So in other words, a question that says,
Which one of these are not?
Which one of the following is false? So that means the wrong answer is the right answer? And I really struggle with that. Now, maybe it's because I'm dyslexic and my brain doesn't work the same way that most people's does. But I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The wrong answer is the right answer? And I really, really struggle with that. So my point is that I'm listening to that on a headphone. I'm like, it'd be so confusing. So I don't like the headphones. If I take a test, I have to sit back and look at it and pick it apart in order to make sure I get the correct answer, okay? So I don't like the headphones. I don't like the computer for a couple reasons. First off, you can't skip questions on the computer. If you take the test on paper, you can skip. I mean, nobody's holding a gun to your head. You can skip questions. And the reason that's hugely advantageous to me is, I can't tell you how many times my little brain remembers something 5 minutes later. I do it all the time, where I can't remember something at the moment. And maybe I'm stumped on question number 7, but question number 23 jogs my memory so that I remember what 7 is, okay? So I like to take the paper version because I can skip questions and come back. If you do that, by the way, make sure you go back, because if you leave it blank, you get it wrong, right? Another thing that I don't like about the computer, the way the Minnesota one is structured, this isn't true in Wisconsin, but it's true in Minnesota. If you get the answer wrong, it corrects you right away, and it goes, okay, well, now I'm distracted, because that's 1. Oh, crap, that's 2. I'm counting in my head how many I've gotten wrong, and now I'm worried about failing the test. So I'm getting anxious. So that's distracting to me, okay? So this is one of those things where ignorance is bliss. In my situation, I would rather not know. On the paper one, obviously nobody's correcting it as you go, so I don't know until the end. And then here's another big reason why I think that the paper one is advantageous over the computer. So the way the computer program is structured, again, you have to get 80% correct, right? So on the general knowledge test, you can get 8 wrong. If you get 9 wrong, you fail. You're done at 9, right? Well, as soon as you get 9 questions wrong, the computer shuts you off.
So you don't get to see the rest of the questions.
So you don't get to see the rest of the questions. So let's say you're having a bad day, you do 20 questions, you get 9 wrong out of the 20, it shuts you off. There's 30 questions that you have not seen.
You only did 10.
If you take the written one, how many questions are you going to look at?
All of them.
Every single one of them suckers. And if you take the computer test, if you have to take it more than once, every time you take it, it'll be jumbled up with different questions. And sometimes they'll take the questions and invert the answers around and stuff. The paper version, there's 2 of them. There's only 2 versions. They don't have a multitude of versions of paper, just 2.
How come they don't offer that?
Offer what?
The paper.
Well, here's the
You
thing.
ask for it.
Okay, well, you don't have to ask for it. You have to insist on it.
Oh.
Okay? Because I'm telling you, here's what will happen. You go into, and first of all, let me explain this. The larger exam stations have the computers. So that's all of the metro exam stations. Arden Hills, Plymouth, Eagan, Lakeland, Chicago, downtown St. Paul, Anoka, Chaska, Hastings. I think that's pretty much it. Okay, St. Cloud. The larger exam stations have the computers. The exam stations that are only open 1 or 2 days a week don't have computers. They're not going to invest the money in the computers. Red Wing's open 1 day a week. Stillwater's open 1 day a week. There's exam stations that are only open 2 days a month. So those places don't have the computers. They only have it on paper, right? Now, if you go into a metro exam station that has the computer and say, yeah, I'm here, I want to take my CDL permit test, okay, go over to machine number 6. So you say, well, I'd like to take it on paper. They'll tell you, no, you have to take it on the computer first. If it were me, I would say, well, I understand you have a policy that dictates that, but I got a problem with your policy. Is a supervisor available, please? I'd like to speak to a supervisor. So supervisor comes out. Well, we have this policy. And to that person, I would say, okay, now as I understand it, there are 92 places in the state of Minnesota that I can take this test. That's what the website shows. I can show you if you want. 92 places to take this test. And not all of them have the computer, which means there are places where it is offered only on paper. Now, if Joe can go to Red Wing and take it on paper, can Bill take it on paper in Eagan?
You should be able to.
Well, if they're going to honor the Constitution and treat all of us equally underneath the law, that's exactly what's going to happen. So be polite, be professional, be courteous. Do not raise your voice. If you get hissy with them, they'll throw you out of there. But stand your ground, be polite, but be firm. I have every right to take this on paper. I'd like to take, well, we don't have any paper copies. You've got a fax machine. I'll wait. Did you go to that damn interstate truck driving school? All right, here's your paper. Okay. Now, why is it that they don't want to give it to you on the paper?
It's more work for them.
Exactly. It takes at least 45 seconds for them to correct it. Whereas correcting the computer one is a keystroke. Okay? So they don't want to do that. They don't want to spend the time it takes to correct your test. So that's what's going on. It's frustrating to me that a state agency has a status quo of not treating people equally and not honoring the United States Constitution. Okay? So, trust me, if you're insistent, they'll give it to you on paper. And I think that's highly advantageous. Next paragraph, you must arrive at least an hour before they close in order to even start a test. They lock their doors 45 minutes before closing time. The only time limit in play are their hours of operation. So if you get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, you've got till 4:30 in the afternoon to complete it. All right? List of exam stations is also at that mindriveinfo.org. They're all over the place. There's 92 of them in the state of Minnesota. Next paragraph. You can take one subject at a time if that works best for you. You do not have to do all three of these in one setting. If you want to do other ones like endorsements, again, you don't have to do it all in one setting. You can break it up. You can even break it up within the same day. You could go in first thing, take a test, pass that one, go outside, turn the heat on, listen to some easy listening music, study the next section, go back in later, take the next test. Now, if you do that, make sure you walk out of the building with a document that proves you passed your test. Okay? You can't trust these guys when it comes to documentation. With what I'm talking about now, think of this. So you pass your test, you go up the counter, yeah, I'm going to come back later and take my combination test. And the gal behind the counter says, okay, no problem. I'll hold on to your paperwork to be right here. Go ahead. I'm here all day. So you go out in the parking lot. 15 minutes later, that gal gets a call from her daycare center. Her kid is sick. Where is she going? She's going to daycare to pick up the kid because daycare's kicking him out, right? So you walk back in 15 minutes after that. Yeah, I'm here to take my next test. I was here a little bit ago and passed my general knowledge. I don't see the woman that helped me, but I did pass it. Oh, gee, that was Martha, and she had to leave. Boy, I can't find your paperwork here. Ma'am, I took the test an hour ago and I passed it. Well, you can come back tomorrow and take it again. Ma'am, I was here. I passed the test. Well, if you pass it once, you can pass it again. I mean, that's their attitude. They just don't care, right? Now, if Martha didn't give you a copy of it, take a picture of it. Okay? Document the fact that you passed this test before you walk out of that building. Now, going forward, pay strict attention to any and all documents you get from these people. This is an important document here. This is how we get on airplanes, right? They make mistakes on these things constantly. We are getting people, we've had people over the years constantly getting the wrong license. We have people getting Class Bs when they took a Class A test, getting Class As when they took a B test.
My driver's license had my name misspelled on it since my very first one. And I've tried to fix it several times. Every time they send it back out, wrong spell.
Okay. How's your penmanship when you fill out the form? Seriously?
It was good. Yeah, I've actually rewritten it.
Okay.
And made sure, and ever since I was my very first driver's license, my name has been spelled wrong.
What name is that?
My middle name.
Which is?
Matthew.
Oh, good Lord. What is it, a single T or something?
Single T, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And
now,
they won't change it.
And
I tried.
well, they're just incompetent down there. Okay, I mean and that's the problem, and that's why I asked you about your penmanship, because I mean, imagine there's a clerk downtown someplace doing this, right? And so, do you think they're going to do this? No, they're just. And then when they screw it up, nobody gets in trouble for it. Okay, that's the big part of the problem. and let me caution you about this with this story. So we had a customer recently. He goes in to get his permit. And so he takes the permit test and he passes all that, you know. So he goes up the counter, he's going to get his permit now, right? And he says, oh, by the way, the city that I live in is misspelled. He lived in Edina, and Edina was misspelled. And so they're like, oh, well, we got to fix that. And I don't know how this is going to really affect you with this thing, because this could come into play. Anyway, so they do the paperwork to correct the address, right? So they take his license and they stamp it void because they're getting a new license, right? So they give him back his license stamped void. And they give him back the paperwork to apply for the new license that's corrected. And then he goes, well, what about my permit? Oh, well, you can't get that then until you get this. What? So honest to God, they made him wait for this to come in the mail. They would not give him a permit. And that's what I'm concerned about with you. Because you're going to go in there with a certified birth certificate.
I went through the military with my driver's license saying the same thing. And
but here's what I'm worried about.
right.
I'm worried that you're going to go in there with a certified birth certificate that's different than your license. And then they're going to have a tizzy about it. And then they may very well make you wait to get your permit to correct your middle name. Because the middle name on your license isn't consistent with the middle name on. So, you know what I would do if I was you? See if they just miss it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it.
I wouldn't say anything. Okay? And then if they do say, oh, well, we got to fix that, well, you're kind of screwed for a while, right? But then what I would do, I would follow up on this. With what you're telling me, I would go home and I would email my state senator and my state legislator, and I would tell them what the problem that you had. And I would ask them to contact Driver Vehicle Services on your behalf to make sure they took care of it. Because I certainly don't trust them to fix it the next time. All right, that's how incompetent these people are. Let me tell you this story. We had a gentleman that 2 years ago, June 21st, year and a half ago, goes in, takes his road test, passes it, but didn't have a certified birth certificate with him, so he couldn't get his license that day. And so he went to Chaska the next day with the paperwork, paid for it, applied for his Class A license. A month later, he gets a letter from the state that says, you have applied for a Class A license, but you haven't taken a road test. So he gets this letter, and he goes to Chaska, and he goes, look at the letter. Yep, no road test. I took a road test at Egan, June 21st, 12:30 in the afternoon. I'll go to Egan then. He drives to Egan. Look at this letter. Yep, no road test. Ma'am, I was here last month at 12:30 in the afternoon on the 21st, and I took a road test. No, you didn't. So he comes here. Guys, help me out. Look at this letter. And we're like, okay, did you keep the piece of paper that examiner gave you that said you passed the test? No, I lost that and went through the wash or something. Well, that's where he's screwed, see? He doesn't have anything to prove that he passed that test. Now, here's the good news. We have dash cameras in all of our trucks. And the only reason we have dash cameras in our trucks is because I sued the state of Minnesota over that. I put dash cameras in there back the fall of 2011, and I didn't ask permission. I'm not going to ask a government agency if it's okay for me to exercise my constitutional rights, right? And these are public officials performing official duties in the public. And so I put dash cameras in the trucks. Well, after the second week, one of the examiners noticed it, and the supervisor comes out and says, we can't do that. So he made us unplug the thing. Well, what he didn't know is that it actually was hardwired, and by unplugging the cigarette lighter, it didn't turn it off. And I wasn't going to tell him that, right? And so I start sending emails downtown, you know, I have a right to do this. They're telling me, no, I can't. And so then they did figure out that I was covertly videotaping, and oh, God, they went ballistic. They tried to put me out of business. Now, I'd already hired an attorney, so we pushed back. And not only did they not put me out of business, but I got a judge to agree that I'm allowed to have these cameras in the trucks. So I have this whole conversation between this examiner and this young man on June 21st about, congratulations, you passed your test. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, here's some things you got to work on. Okay, I'll take care of that. Okay, here's your paperwork. You can go and get your license. Oh, can I do that here? Sure, you can do it here. Do I need my certified birth certificate? Oh, of course, you need that. Well, I don't have that with. Well, then you can't do it now. Well, I live out by Chaska. Can I go there? Sure, you can go to Chaska. I got this whole conversation on videotape. All right? So what I did was Pat, our training director, found it within a few minutes, and we played it on a monitor, and I had the young man videotape it with his phone, and then go out the Egan exam station. So he goes out the exam station. He goes, I got video proof that I passed this test. And they're like, oh, we don't care. It's not in our computer. Go to Chaska. They're the ones that screwed this up. So he drives to Chaska. I got video proof. Hey, we didn't make a mistake. Egan made the mistake. Back to Egan. So he's back at Egan for the 3rd time that day. Would you be mad by now? Okay. And get this. He goes in there and he says, I got video proof. And I told him, ask for the supervisor. Supervisor comes out and says, we don't care. I'm not looking at your video. You're not in a computer. You're not in a computer. There's nothing I can do about it. So he calls me. And he says, what am I going to do? And I says, which supervisor is it? Jessica, he says. He says, okay, tell Jessica that when you and I hang up, I'm going to call my attorney. His name's Paul Applebaum. So she can expect a call from him. And then as soon as I hang up from leaving him a message, I can never get a hold of him. But as soon as I leave my attorney a message, I'm going to call KSTP Television. I advertise with them guys. I have a little bit of a connection down there. And I'm going to see if I can get a hold of Jessica Miles and her come out and do a report on the fact that you've got video proof that you have passed a test and they're refusing to even look at it. He calls me back 5 minutes later. Well, it's taken care of now. Now, isn't it a shame that you have to go to that length to get these people to do what they should have done in the first dang place? And what really irks me is the guy that messed him up is still there and he's still screwing people's stuff up. I see it all the time. Probably 6 times a year, we have students that are messed up by that same guy with some sort of paperwork thing, okay? Putting a restriction that you can't drive a truck with air brakes when you tested with air brakes. Or testing with a manual transmission and putting a restriction on your license that says you can't drive manual transmissions. That's the kind of thing that happens. So be very careful with your penmanship. Examine every document they give you. Keep every document they give you. And then when you get this in the mail, examine it very carefully, including the back, because this is where they put the restriction. And they might put a restriction here that you don't deserve. And you want to catch that right away, go out there with the paperwork and say, hey, you put this restriction on here. Here's the paperwork. It says that I don't have that restriction. Take the restriction off. And they'll fix it. As long as you can prove immediately that it's their fault, then they'll take care of it. Okay? But like this young man that took his test on June 21st, if you don't have that, you're screwed. Okay? All right. Now, let's talk about the last sentence on my little handout here on the first page. You need to complete a CDL medical self-certification form when you get your permit. Take the handout I've given you, flip it to the very back page, and that's the CDL medical self-certification form. Okay? Let me get one up on the screen here. Now, when you get your permit, you have to fill this form out, okay? And this form requires you to certify that you fit into one of 4 categories. The first 2 categories are interstate, allowing you to cross state lines. The second 2 categories are intrastate, which limits you to the state of Minnesota, commercially. Now, why would someone be in an intrastate category? Two situations. First of all, under age 21. Anybody under age 21. Okay, so that puts you all interstate at that point. Second reason that someone would be restricted to intrastate, the threshold for passing a DOT physical is higher on the interstate side than the intrastate. Examples. For interstate, you have to see 20/40 with both eyes. Correction allowed. Intrastate, you can get by with 20/40 with one eye. So someone might not be able to pass an interstate physical, but they can pass an intrastate physical. So that's why the option is there. Okay? Then within those, the interstate and intrastate, notice that there's 2 options there. Non-exempt, which means it's required. Why they don't just say required, I don't know. But non-exempt means it's required. And then exempt. Now, who would be exempt from having a DOT physical? Well, there are some government jobs where you don't need it. But then also likely What if you're getting a commercial license for personal use? What's an example of that? Well, let's say for the sake of discussion that I go buy a lottery ticket after class today and I win tonight. Well, by sometime by the end of the day on Saturday, my wife would expect the purchase of a hobby farm complete with horses. And then by the end of next week, the purchase of a truck and trailer capable of hauling 4 horses, so she and 3 of her friends can take their horses and go trail riding around town, okay? Now, she's going to need to come here to get her Class A license. I'll still be here. So she has to do that because of the weight capacity of the vehicle to drive that. But she's not operating commercially. This is a personal use operation. So she doesn't need the physical. She doesn't need to follow hours of service regulations. She doesn't need to have the vehicles inspected. But she has to be very careful. She can't do anything that takes in money with that truck and trailer. So she can't sell hay. She can't charge her friends gas money. She can't do any of that. Okay? So that being said, she's exempt and can go into the exempt category. Now, you all, when you get your permit, I assume nobody's paying you to drive a truck at that moment. So you can be exempt when you get your permit. If you want to get your physical ahead of time and have it with you and show it to them, you can go right away into the required category. Fine. You can get your license without having a DOT physical and, again, stay in the exempt category. There are examiners that work for the state of Minnesota, clerks that work for the state of Minnesota, that for somebody told them you got to have a physical. And part of what I've heard from people is, yeah, the examiner said to me, well, why are you getting a CDL if you're not going to work for it? Well, you know what? That's none of their beeswax. Okay? That's not their business what you're doing or why you're doing it. Okay? What is their business is that you're following rules. All right? You have every right to be exempt. Now, how many of you already have the physical? Anybody here? Okay. If you haven't been to a doctor in several years, I would get in and take a physical before you do anything else. Because here's the deal. If you haven't been to a doctor in 10 years, you might have something going on health-wise that you don't know about, and it would prevent you from getting a commercial license, or getting certified anyway, to be able to make some money with this license that you want to get. So I would do that as soon as you can. Now, DOT physicals are not that big of a deal. They cost anywhere from $25 to $200, depending upon where you go. We have a doctor that comes in here Thursday afternoons, a chiropractor. He does them. He normally charges $60. He charges our students $45. It gives people a discount, and you'd be more than welcome to take advantage of that if you want. I had a customer recently started class, took his DOT physical the first week, then said to me on Friday, he says, boy, I took my DOT physical yesterday. I found out I have high blood pressure. So it's a good thing I did that quick so that I can, get that squared away by the time I get my license. And I said to him, yeah, it's a good thing you found out about it before you died. Okay? High blood pressure can kill you. All right? So it would be prudent of you to get in for a DOT physical ASAP if you haven't been to a doctor in a long time. If you took a physical for something else 6 months ago, I wouldn't be too worried about it.
What's on that physical?
So they check blood pressure, vision, heart rate.
But vision, you just wear corrective glasses, you're good to go.
Yeah, 20/40 with both eyes. They do a urine test for blood in your urine and high blood sugar. Make sure you don't have any missing limbs. It's pretty simple. So the two things that trip people up are either high blood sugars or high blood pressure. And vision can mess people up too, because there are people out there who see you can pass the car test with 20/40 with one eye. So you can be renewing your license every year and not think you have a vision problem. Well, you got to see 20/40 with both eyes to pass this deal, okay? To be interstate. So it doesn't take long. It's a pretty short process. But again, if you haven't been to a doctor in a long time, I'd get in right away and get that taken care of. Now, this part of the equation is really important. That what I'm about to explain to you is worth your time being here alone, okay? So, we have a driver shortage, right? One of the reasons, there are several, there are many dominoes that have fallen to create this driver shortage. But one of the reasons for the driver shortage is this. It used to be, up until about 4 years ago, we had to carry a DOT card in our wallet to be legal, right? The truck stops used to sell blank ones for $4. Honest to God, $4, you get a blank card. How hard was it to have a DOT health card in your wallet? $4 and a friend with lousy penmanship, and you got a card. Now, if a catastrophe happened, an investigation would find out it was a fraudulent card, but a trooper out on the road had no idea whether this card was legit or not. No clue. Well, the feds knew this was going on, so they created a system to stop that fraudulent health card thing. So as of about 4 years ago now, you have to go to a certified medical provider. It says that right on the form. If you were to submit it, you have to present a certificate from a certified medical examiner. Okay? So the feds have these people registered. They have to be trained and tested in order to be registered in this federal database in order to issue the physical in the first place. Then what you and I have to do is you and I have to go register this with the state of Minnesota. Let me show you how that works. I'm going to put my driving record up here. I'm going to type in my numbers, so I'm going to take that off the screen for a second. So this is me, okay? So I have a Class A license. My Class D is valid, license in good standing. My commercial license in good standing. Here are my endorsements. No restrictions. Here's my medical status. I'm certified. Okay. Category 1, not exempt. But now here's the kicker. My CDL medical certificate expires May of 2020. The state of Minnesota knows when my DOT expires. My license expires 2 years after that. Now, what's really important to understand is this. 60 days before the expiration date of my medical, the state is going to send me a letter. I've gotten so many of them, I can remember it verbatim. Dear William, this letter is sent to you as a courtesy by Driver and Vehicle Services Division. This is to bring to your attention that your CDL medical certification is going to expire on the 20th of May. If you wish to maintain your CDL driving privileges, you must recertify by that date. If I forget to send in the form by May 20th, what happens to me on May 21st? No more CDL. I have a Class D license, but I do not have a CDL on May 21st. So that means any driving I do May 21st on, I can get a ticket for it because I'm not certified. Question?
What if you're, like, say you're not driving commercially anymore, and you don't need it?
But you've lost your CDL.
Huh?
You still lost your CDL. Okay? Now, if you fix this within 365 days, they'll reinstate it.
Okay.
But what if you go more than a year without reinstating it? Then you're all the way back to square one. So in my case, if you look at my situation, my medical expires May 20th, right, 2020. So let's say that I forget to send the certification in. Let's say I get the medical, but I just don't send the form in. They take my CDL away. 2 years later, July of 2022, I go in. I'm here to renew my license here. My license is about to expire. I'd like to renew it. Well, you can renew your Class D, Mr. Collins. I've got a Class A. It says that right there. Well, you used to have a Class A. Okay, so why is it that you're saying I don't have a Class A anymore? Well, back in 2020, your medical expired, and you didn't recertify. So you're saying the medical expired? Right. Well, I've got a new medical right here. Are we good? Well, you can go take your permit test.
So
and start all over. Yes.
So.
Wow. Yeah.
So say. I guess my question is more like this. If I say.
So I think I'm going to answer your question. So let's say, for the sake of discussion, that you get this medical now. Mm-hmm. And let's say yours is good for 2 years. Mine's only good for a year, by the way, because I'm taking meds for high blood pressure. So when I go in to take my medical, there's a form I got to fill out. What meds are you on? High blood pressure. So that kicks me down to a 1 year medical. I have to go in every year, right? But let's say, for the sake of discussion, that you get a 2 year medical, get a job, and a year from now, a different opportunity comes up. So now you stop driving truck.
Right.
Okay?
That's what I did.
So then a year after that, you get the letter. Your medical is going to expire. And you say to yourself, well, why would I spend the money on a medical when I ain't driving a dang truck? This is real simple. Then what you do is you recertify. You send this form back in, but check exempt now.
That's right.
Okay? And then you can stay in exempt forever and renew your license whenever it expires. So make sure you do that. We have students, we've had at least 5 people this year that have come in, they forgot to send in the form. Some of them even got the physical. They just forgot to send the form in. And then they, see, and the thing of it is, why is that? Why are they taking your CDL away from you? I mean, the fact that your medical is expired, that in and itself is a ticketable offense. Why not just give you a ticket for driving without the medical if you were to be caught doing that? Why do they go to the extreme of taking your license away? I don't know. These people downtown are sons of guns. I'm telling you, me and the state of Minnesota Department of Public Safety Driving Vehicle Service Division have butted heads a lot. They are, get this, there's a federal rule that says if your permit expires, the feds say you do not have to take another permit test to renew it. Guess what Minnesota forces you to do? Take another permit test. Why? They charge you money either way. I just don't get it. I don't understand the mentality, the attitude down there. But the bottom line here is don't forget to recertify if your medical expires. And the part that you missed is down the road, if you're not driving truck, so you don't feel a need to get a new physical, but you want to keep the license, send the form in, but now tell them you're exempt. So if you're not driving truck 2 years from now when your medical expires, take that form, send it in, I'm exempt now. That way you keep your CDL.
Why wouldn't you say you're still not exempt?
Well, say you were driving for a while, you got a different job, that you weren't driving any longer, you wouldn't need medical card. And so you wouldn't want to pay for it, maybe. So what he's saying is he fill this form back up again and go exempt. You can keep your CDL without having to have your medical card.
Thanks for updating.
And that way you get to keep your CDL. See, the thing is, once you get this, keep it. Okay? You don't want to go through this all over again. All right? Yeah. I've got somebody in our program right now that went through here 5 years ago. And that's why he lost his CDL. He said he didn't recertify. He forgot to send the dang form in. Okay? And other people that, you know, they weren't driving, so they didn't want to pay for the physical, and it just didn't occur to them to send the form in as exempt. That's all they had to do. And then, so 2 years from now, you're not driving, so you decide you don't want a physical, so you go into the exempt status. A year after that, you want to go drive truck, right? Here to apply for the job in Craigslist. Okay, where's your medical? Well, I don't have that. Well, go get it. It's a clinic right down the road. An hour and a half later, you're back with the medical. Okay, can I? All right, well, okay. Now you get hired. So it's that easy to get recertified. It's very, very, very simple. Just don't forget to send this dang form in when it expires. Okay? And that way you'll be able to keep your license.
They mail you that form.
No, they send you a renewal notice.
Okay.
And they'll actually send you 2 if you don't renew it. So they will remind you that it's expiring. The form is available online. You can use that one right in front of you. But you can get it online, fill it out, and you can either fax it in or bring it in person. Either way.
Drive in, just walk into the DMV.
Yep. And it's a little quicker to do it that way if you walk in there because they'll enter it right there. Right? All right. And keep in mind, you do have to be in the system. If you just had the medical, but you weren't certified with the state, you'd get a ticket for that. I mean, there are truck drivers. I got the card right here. I don't care. You're not in the system. You're supposed to be in the system. Here's your ticket. All right. Let's talk about the test. How
long is this class?
90 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So it'll be done at 2:30.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this manual was written in 1984. It's a little outdated. When the manual first came out, when they first started requiring all of us drivers to take a test, That was a change. I've been licensed since 1975, and I did not have to take a knowledge test. I did not have to take a permit test to get my permit. I just went in and got the permit, okay? So the whole testing thing started in the middle 1980s. Initially, people were having a real hard time passing the test. So the manual is written by an organization called AMVA, American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, under contract with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So when the feds became aware of the difficulty that people were having passing this test, the feds went to AMVA and they said, look, is there something you can do to help people study for the test? And what they did is they created these test your knowledge boxes. And these test your knowledge boxes, these are the questions on the test.
You get a copy of it here?
It's in there. It's on page 2-8 in that green book. So 2-8. Oh, you got it in a 3 ring. That's cool.
Well, I've been reading up and studying it.
Yep, that's it. Okay.
It's, you know, they're all in there for every section.
So throughout each section, you're going to find these questions in these test your knowledge boxes. Those are the questions on the test. All right? They did that on purpose. Now, remember I told you, this is 6 hours of reading. So where in here, I mean, what exactly do you need to study in order to pass the test? Anybody can any of you remember going to college or high school and how much studying that took? Right? And, you know, there are people that like that. My daughter's like that. She would stay in school her whole life if she could. She loves studying, okay? But, again, this is 6 hours of just reading, much less studying. How do you prepare for this thing? Well, the test your knowledge boxes give you this very narrow focus as to what you need to know to pass this test. So, again, the first one of these is on page 2-8, so section 2, page 8 of section 2. You're going to find the test your knowledge questions that I've got up on the screen. Now, the first question here is one of those that is a no-brainer that anybody can figure out the answer to. Question number 1, what's the most important reason for doing a vehicle inspection?
Make sure it's safe.
Safety, okay? So that's easy enough. Number 2, though, if you don't read this section of the manual, you are not going to know the correct answer for question number 2. So let me ask you, what things should you check during a trip? What do you suppose the correct answer is going to include?
Your load.
Your load,
Lights.
lights, tires.
Accelerating, steering, stopping. I don't know.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, if we go back to page 2-2 and look at what things you're supposed to check during a trip, I'm going to use my little search engine here. There it is on page 2-2. During a trip, for safety, you should watch gauges for signs of trouble and use your senses to check for problems. Look, listen, smell, and feel. That's the correct answer. Okay? Now, if they had asked you the question, what things should you check during your trip when you're actually driving down the road? Then you would have been able to figure out what the correct answer was, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But see, they didn't ask you the question that way. They asked it in I'm sorry, it's 2-1. It's on the very first page of that section. Right-hand column. That's the correct answer. So, here's what I'm suggesting you do. You look at the test your knowledge box. You find the question, what things you check during a trip. You go back into that section, find that during a trip, highlight that. Now you have the perfect study guide. You have the perfect study guide. You know exactly what to study. Not the whole dang thing, okay? The next question, let me go back to our box here. Name some key steering system parts. Well, those are in a diagram on page 2-2, but they include pitman arm, drag link, tie rod, steering box, hydraulic fluid, yeah. So, but the basic things are going to be the pitman arm, drag leg, and tie rod. So you're going to be able to identify those components because you've highlighted them. The next question is on the same page. Name some key steering system, name some suspension system defects is the next question. So that includes cracked, broken, missing, or shifted leaf springs. It includes leaking shock absorbers, broken spring mounts. So you highlight that. So now what you're doing is you're highlighting all of the information that potentially will be on the quiz. Next question. What 3 kinds of emergency equipment must you have? Any ideas?
Fire extinguisher.
Yep.
Road flares.
Or triangles. Flares or triangles. So one or the other.
Circuit breakers.
Spare fuses, unless it has circuit breakers. Okay. Now, the interesting thing to me about the spare fuses, I think that's stupid. That you and I should have to carry fuses, knowing what limited I do know about motor vehicles. If a fuse blows, if you have a spare fuse and put it in, then what? It'll blow again.
Yeah, you don't know why.
Right. So now, if they made us carry ohm meter, test light, spare wire, connectors, shrink wrap, all that kind of stuff, I could see the logic of carrying fuses. But without all that, I don't see the logic of carrying fuses. So I have 20 commercial motor vehicles in my business. Every single one of them has spare fuses in it. I have no idea if they fit. Have no clue. Okay. We had a brand new truck. This is a 2019 Freightliner. And Friday afternoon, the left side lights quit working. The headlights, turn signals, brake lights, everything on the left side of the truck quit working. It's still in the shop right now waiting on parts. Okay? There's no way I could have fixed that sucker. Especially with all the electronics in these trucks these days, the way everything's computerized and stuff. Huh?
Not on the side of the road.
Well, I couldn't have fixed it. No way. I mean, it's just I mean, remember the day of carburetors? Some of you guys remember that. You probably have never even heard of a carburetor, okay? The millennials, carburetor, what the hell is that?
Thanks.
Huh?
Thanks.
Well, seriously.
I've heard of a carburetor.
You've heard of a carburetor? Okay, all right.
I don't know what it does.
Oh, there you go. Okay. All right, let me ask you this.
I can put
All
gas
right,
in
but let me
my
ask you this. You ever seen one of those?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know how to use it.
Do you really?
Yes.
Okay, well, there's millennials that have no idea how to use these things, okay? And this actually works, by the way.
Oh,
Okay.
that's adorable.
Yeah, you can get an app that actually works.
These questions, when they're asking what all, the questions you were just asking,
Yep.
do they give you a list to choose from? Or do you have to actually have it memorized and be able to write this?
Well,
down?
so here's the deal. All of those questions are fair game on the test.
Yeah, but I mean, it says,
It's all multiple choice of the testing.
one question was key suspension parts.
Yep.
Are they gonna have those on there where I just check the box, these are key suspension parts?
No, it'll be multiple guess. And so name some steering system parts. Well, A will be leaf spring, shock absorber, and spring mount. B will be exhaust manifold, muffler, and tailpipe.
Yep.
And C is going to be drag link, pitman arm, and tie rod. So that's the way you'll be able to identify which one of those are steering parts. Okay. Yep. So as long as you have some understanding of what the correct information is, it'll be easy to pass the test. I promise you that. One of the gentlemen watching in Wisconsin. I mean, trust me, if you've honed in on these test your knowledge boxes, it's going to be a piece of cake for you to find the correct answer. If you haven't read the information, then it's really a struggle. All right, so the 3 emergency equipment: fire extinguisher, triangles, and spare fuses. Number 6, minimum tread depth for front tires.
430 seconds.
430 seconds. Minimum tread depth for rear tires.
230 seconds.
230 seconds. Tread depth is measured in 32nd of an inch increments. Okay, so to answer 1/8 or 1/16 would be incorrect. It's 430 seconds and 230 seconds. Sort of gone.
When you do the walk around and then once you check tire pressure, do you have to have an air gauge with you?
On your road test?
Yeah.
No, but you have to tell them that's how it's done.
Okay.
Okay. Number 7, name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during the walk-around inspection. They're talking about lights there. Number 8, what should wheel bearing seals be checked for?
Leakage?
Leaks. Yep, grease leaks. The good news about a grease leak with a wheel seal is that centrifugal force is going to throw it all over the place. Okay? Real easy to find a wheel seal leak, but look inside and out. Number 9, how many of those red reflective triangles are you supposed to have?
3.
3 of them, exactly. Some drivers like to carry the reflective triangles in the side box. So if they're and the fire extinguisher, the reason they like to do that is if they're ever inspected, they can open up the box and show the CVI, the commercial vehicle inspector or trooper, without inviting them into the cab, because a lot of people would just as soon have law enforcement stay out of the cab. But if you do use the side box, I would recommend you use this side box to put them in. Why is that?
Because it's the other side of the truck and you're not going to use it inside. Safety for being on the side of the road.
Right. I don't want you to get out into traffic. Okay. I find that very precarious. So think about where you're going to put your triangle. Number 10, how do you test hydraulic brakes for leaks? There's a formula. Anybody know what the formula is? And the only way you'd know the formula is if you read the manual.
I knew that. I just read that.
Pump
3 times?
3 times. Hold for
1 minute?
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
5 seconds. So that's the formula. Pump 3 times, hold for 5 seconds. Okay? And during that 5 seconds that you're applying the pedal, the pedal should not go down. Okay? But how in the world would you know that if you hadn't read it? So you've got to read the manual. But here's the good news. Now you know what in the manual will come up on the test. All right? Number 11, why put the starter switch key in your pocket during the pre-trip? So that nobody inadvertently starts the truck while you're underneath it doing an inspection. Okay? Let's go to the next section here. Right there. So this is on section 2, page 8, so 2-8. Why should you back towards the driver's side? You can see better. Okay. Number 2, if stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling back? Again, a lot of the information in this manual is outdated because what they're concerned about is that the truck is going to stall on you when you attempt to get going on a hill. Well, that was an issue when this manual was written back in the middle 1980s, especially since none of the motors were electronically controlled and about half the trucks out there were gas anyway. Well, with today's diesels, with all the torque they have and the electronic fuel management, you feather that clutch out nice and smooth and it'll never stall on you. It'll never roll back on you, okay? But the manual doesn't know that because the manual was written during the old technology. So the manual is going to say, use the parking brake, and if the truck trailer you have is equipped with a trailer brake lever on the dashboard, use that. I don't do either one of those things with today's trucks. Again, you're not driving a 1972 Pinto, okay? It's not going to buck, snort, and stall on you, right? Put it in gear, ease the clutch out till it starts to engage. Take your foot off the brake. It'll go right up the hill. All right. Number 3, when backing, why is it important to use a helper? And the correct answer there is going to say to avoid blind spots, okay? Incidentally, if you're backing up with a helper, if you ever lose sight of them, what do?
Stop.
Stop, please. Number 4, what's the most important hand signal that you and the helper should agree on?
Stop.
Stop. Because, I mean, there's lots. I mean, in the construction industry, a closed fist is stop. And so a lot of people in the trucking industry will use that also. But, you know, you're going to see all kinds of variations of stop. So have a conversation with your spotter. Have a conversation with your spotter to remind them they should move around in order to maintain eye contact with you in that mirror. Right? Asking my wife to help me spot me backing up is because she'll just stand there. Okay, the vehicle's moving around and she's still just standing there. Okay,
Won't give you any signals
and she ain't even looking at me. She's looking at where the vehicle's going, you know, and doing this and has no idea whether she got eye contact with me, so I don't even bother. My wife is a sweetheart. I love her to death. But when it comes to driving, okay. Number 5. What are the 2 special conditions where you should downshift?
Before you get to the hill,
Yep. And
when you're going down the hill. No?
well, yeah, before you get to a downhill and
Around the curve?
around a curve, prior to going down a hill or around a curve. Okay. Number 6, when should you downshift automatic transmissions? The correct answer is prior to going down a hill. Here again, the technology has changed. These automatic transmissions these days, you don't need to downshift them. They downshift themselves. I got a little diesel in my pickup truck. That sucker downshifts itself. I don't need to do it. It does it all by its own self. Okay. It knows when it's going down a hill. If I'm off the throttle and the speed's going up, the thing downshifts. Okay. But the manual doesn't know that because, again, the manual was written way back when. So the correct answer is before you go down the hill.
How about going in like the middle of the hill? I mean, can you just keep downshifting or never given a truck? I mean, before you get to the hill, you downshift, you're saying, but let's say you're picking up speed, can you just keep downshifting?
Okay.
Doesn't that
Well,
work?
you can manually do that,
Yeah.
but today's trucks are going to downshift themselves. So what I'm saying is,
Manual, though, you have to do it yourself.
right. But this question is, what do you do with an automatic?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, you don't need to do that. You don't need to downshift them. Yeah. Not today's
I was
automatic.
thinking manual.
If you're driving a 62 GMC pickup truck, then I'd say you do need to downshift it. Yeah. Yes.
Say that you have a truck that's equipped like a Freightliner, not the newer models, that you couldn't put with adaptive cruise control.
Yep.
Could you shut that off and still downshift, let it downshift automatically?
Well, okay, so if you're going down a hill, you have to slow down to an appropriate speed before you start down. Okay? And any downgrade will have a posted speed limit. If it's a serious downgrade, it'll be posted as to what the appropriate speed is. Okay? Now, with a commercial motor vehicle, let's say it's posted at 50. What speed are you supposed to start down that hill? If it's posted at 50, 45, 5 mile an hour less than whatever it's posted for. Okay? So you're driving along, you're using adaptive cruise control, you come up to this 50 mile an hour downgrade, you put your foot on the brake and you slow down to 45 miles an hour. Now when you do that, it will downshift. So you don't have to downshift, it'll do that. All right? So then you go over the crest and you start down the hill, you're off the throttle at this point at 45 miles an hour. If the speed starts to climb, the first thing you should do is hit the engine retarder, which is the next question anyway here. You should hit the engine retarder, which is an engine brake, okay? If the speed continues to climb, if it gets back up to 50 with the engine retarder on, then you're supposed to use the brakes firmly over a 3-second period of time to reduce by 5 miles an hour. Then take your foot off the brake again. Now, if the speed climbs back up, then use the brake, slow down again. Take your foot off, put it back on. Why do you suppose they want you to use an on and off and on and off braking method?
Try to keep the brakes cool.
Try to keep the brakes cool because most of these trucks still have drum brakes. Okay? Of all the trucks I have one truck with disc brakes on the front. I'm pretty close to ordering a new truck, and I'm going to get disc brakes on it. Because the disc brakes are far superior. They work better, they last longer, easier to maintain, they stay in adjustment all the time. They're far superior to drum brakes. Now, the high-end trucks, the Peterbilts and the Kenworths, those trucks are coming with disc brakes these days. The trailers aren't. You could order them with disc brakes. You can get them with disc brakes, but 99.9% of the trailers on the road don't have disc brakes. And about 90% of the Freightliners and International still have drum brakes. And it's just an old school mentality. The disc brakes are far superior. The real problem with disc brakes, or drum brakes, excuse me, is that they'll overheat going down a grade, which is why a Cummins engineer in 1960 invented the engine brake, because drum brakes are so problematic going down a steep grade with a big load. So you have to be very careful with how you drive these things because of the huge weight, right?
And they know that disc brakes are superior to drum brakes. I don't think
Because the trucking industry is really kind of old school. My daddy do it that way. I did it that way. So you can do it the same way as I did. You don't need no school, boss. You can walk to school. Okay, really, it's old school stuff. Okay, I mean a lot of these older guys in the trucking industry probably still have flip phones. Okay, I mean they just don't adapt the technology or resist technology. Someone your age adapts that. Okay, but the older people are.
So then they will agree to the all-electric truck that Freightliner is releasing soon.
There's a lot of resistance to that, but I can't wait for electric trucks. I think that's just exciting. Incidentally, we're not going to have autonomous trucks. I'll bet you on it. It doesn't make sense economically. They're too expensive in a wide variety of ways. It doesn't make sense economically. I'm not going to go into a big deal about it, but the technology is very helpful. So adaptive cruise control, do you guys know what we're talking about with adaptive cruise control? Maintains a distance for you. You turn this thing on, maintains a distance. There's radar watching the traffic in front of you. If the traffic slows down, your vehicle slows down. Your vehicle will actually stop. I love that stuff. I've got a vehicle with it. My wife's got it. My personal car has it. My wife's car has it. My oldest kids have it. Okay. I'm real big on that technology. I think the technology is great. Okay. But to turn the thing loose without somebody behind the wheel, it's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. Anyway. Number 7, retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. That's false because the engine retarder is literally causing a braking effect on the rear wheels. How many of you, when you were younger, when it snowed, you went out and found a big parking lot?
Grab the e-brake.
Grab the e-brake, okay? So causing braking on a slippery surface with the rear brakes will cause a skid, so you wouldn't want to use it in that condition. But the manual says that you should not use your engine retarder when the road is wet, icy, or snow covered. Wet, go ahead and use your engine brake when it's raining. If you've got a load on, you got a ton of traction. And if you're empty, you don't need the engine brake. But if you're loaded, you want to use the engine brake. And I don't care if it's raining, you're not going to have any reduction in traction with a heavily loaded truck. You're going to have a ton of traction. Snow. Now, yesterday is pretty slippery, wasn't it? And even this morning there were some real slippery spots, right? So you got to be real careful with that. If it's icy, you know where me and my truck are if it's icy? Parked. We parked someplace, okay? So if it's freezing drizzle, I'm off the road. I know people are going to lose control of their cars when it's slippery. So I'm very conservative with how I drive these vehicles when it's slippery. I've operated this business 21 and a half years. We're coming up on 22 now. March 7th will be our anniversary, 22 years. 0 reportable collisions in that 22 years. Not a single insurance claim due to a collision over 22 years, okay? I suppose I've done that. Being very conservative, especially with weather conditions. We're running all of our trucks empty, which means they're more precarious and susceptible to skidding. So we're just very conservative when it comes to the conditions. On the other hand, I race cars. I love driving fast. I still race cars to this day. And I started my racing on the ice here in Minnesota. You know, I used to race at the St. Paul Winter Carnival in Lake Phelan. Anybody remember that? Long time ago.
Studded tires?
Yep, studded tires. Yep. Won that thing in 1984. It's one of my big highlights in my career. Anyway, number 8, what are the 2 ways to know when to shift? Road speed and engine speed. Okay? All right, now let's do this for the last couple of minutes here. Let's go to cdltest.co, that website I was telling you about for practice tests. Let's do some practice questions. So we'll do Class A practice. So this one has 114 questions. All right, question number 1. Front end header boards can protect the driver from cargo in case of a crash or sudden stop. True. What they're talking about is that the header board is at the front of a flatbed trailer. And that's why they call it a header board. Okay. Number 2, if a tire blows out, you should apply the brakes hard to stop quickly. False. No brake, no gas, ride it out. Wet roads can double your stopping distance.
True. False.
A wet road? Boy.
Yeah, it's in there. I reckon
Okay.
it's- I don't know if it's true, but I think it.
All right, says it's true. If you're loaded, I don't know that it's going to increase it. But if that's what it says, then that's the correct answer. All right. Off-ramp and on-ramp posted speed limits are usually safe for large and heavy vehicles.
False.
False, because they want you what?
Slow.
5 under.
Yeah.
Okay? They want you 5 under whatever that is. Okay? That's why that was false. What does communicating mean in safe driving? That's signals. It's not the CB, it's not the hand signals, it's not all of the above or none of the above. It's the question that includes the turn signals. The service brake system applies and releases the parking brakes when you use the parking brake control.
Service brake supplies the air to the tanks. No, service brake applies goes to all the systems, both the rear axle, the front axle. Am I in trouble? I just read this.
Well, here's the deal. I was doing this Saturday. I got the same question on this thing. The correct answer is false. I mean, the service brake applies the parking brake. The service brake applies the service brake, not the parking brake. But the picture is the parking brake. So I think they have this wrong. The picture is the parking brake. So the picture, this question should say the parking brake applies and releases the parking brake when you use the parking brake control. And that would be true. But it says the service brake. So they got this thing screwed up. They have this question wrong. All right? I should write these guys and tell them that I should take a screenshot of it and send it to them and go, you got this question wrong. Fix it, guys, because this is wrong. I think, based on what I did on Saturday, the correct answer is true, even though I'm going to say that the correct answer is false. But let's see what happens. Oh God, it was right. All right.
So could you go back on this?
I don't. It won't go back.
Oh, okay.
Dang thing won't go back to it. It used to do that, but now it doesn't. See, now it goes to different questions. But that thing's messed up. That question is messed up.
I got a quick one on that as long as we're on.
Right.
I don't mean to. You have 3 lines in there. That one will say the parking brake. The other one is tractor protection. Would that have been more appropriate?
Wait a minute now. What are you reading?
Well, I'm trying to go back to that service brake thing.
That question was messed up.
So I should
Trust
just
me.
go, just trust
Yeah,
what happened.
yeah.
All right.
Forget that question.
Okay,
Okay.
let's go.
That was messed up. They asked you the service brakes and they showed you the parking brake. Huh? Doesn't make any sense.
So, service brake is like the brake that you will step on.
Yes.
And parking brake is that yellow switch button.
Right. So your service brake is your foot brake. Okay? These are your parking brakes. With a tractor trailer, you got 2 of them. The yellow one is the tractor, the truck. The red one is the trailer. When they're out, the brakes are set. The parking brake is set on with these buttons out. When these buttons are pushed in, that charges the air system, pushes air into the spring brake chambers, and releases the parking brake. So these are the parking brakes. Truck, trailer.
So, but when you pull out on the yellow, does that apply to service brake then?
No. Service brake is separate from this.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm just wondering.
Yep,
Just
it's completely
charges.
separate. It's two different hoses.
I'm just asking.
Yep. So I'm gonna get this on camera here if I can. So this is your service brake up on the front. It is a single hose.
Okay.
Okay. Your spring brake chamber on the rear and on the trailer has 2 hoses.
Okay.
One being the service brake, the other one being the spring brake, which is the parking brake. So 2 completely different hoses. Right? Up front, you only have service. So it's a single hose.
Okay.
And again, that's why that question was just confusing the daylights out of me, because they're talking about service brake, but they're showing you the picture of the parking brake. It's like, well, your question's all screwed up.
I guess. If you don't understand the mechanics of the truck, you can't understand that.
And
But that was one of the questions I got wrong.
see, now, that's one of the, I'm not here to sell you on the school, but that's one of the advantages to going to school, is that you can get more hands-on with this stuff. All right, the proper oil pressure range for engine idling is, I don't know what the manual says, to be honest with you. Let's try 20-40. Wrong answer. No, I can't go back to it. So, whatever the manual says is what the answer is. Does the manual even say that?
They go into detail about air pressure, but I don't remember reading anything about oil pressure. I think that's manufactured.
Yes. Vehicle specific.
Yeah, the manufactured engines. and it's-
Right. That's why I'm okay. Here it is, right there. Look, there's a diagram. So the correct answer was 5 to 20. That's what it says in the manual.
Isn't that what you had?
No, I think I said 20 to 40 or something.
Yeah.
All right.
Because 5 to 20 seems low to me,
It does.
but that's what the manual says.
I typically leave my Dodge. I got a Cummins truck, and that freaking idling. It idles at over freaking 20.
Yeah. I would think 5 to 20 would be low, but that's what the manual says. So, okay, whatever you say. I mean, seriously, you got to go by the
If I
manual.
was looking at my truck at my engine oil pressure gauge, and it said 5. I think I needed to add oil.
Yep.
You got a leak.
Yeah.
Okay, we got time for a couple more. Of all the space around your vehicle, what space is more important? Space on the left, front, right, or behind? What?
I think it's front.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go with front.
Yes, that's a good answer.
You are correct.
That's a manual.
All
Okay.
of the spaces are very important.
Low boys, car carriers, moving vans, livestock trailers, are an example of what? These
get stuck on a railroad highway crossing.
exactly. Because they're low slung, they're susceptible to getting stuck on the railroad. What is the best and fastest way to recognize the trailer has started to skid? The jackknife alarm, emergency brakes come on, you see it in your mirrors, you feel it in the steering wheel.
See the mirrors.
See it in your mirrors, exactly. Jackknife alarm.
That's an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
When air tank pressure rises to approximately 125, 130, the governor stops the compressor from pumping air. True or false?
True.
True. The distance it takes to stop during ideal conditions once the brakes are applied is called,
Reaction.
no, that's braking distance. Reaction is the time it took you to get to the brake pedal.
Reaction plus perception equals braking distance. Right?
Well, braking distance is the distance it takes to stop once the brakes are applied. Stopping distance is the total of those first three.
Right. Okay, yep.
So reaction is the time it takes you to get to the brake pedal once your brain says to do something. Perception distance is the time it takes your brain to recognize a hazard and decide to do something about it. When the wheels of a trailer lock up, the trailer will tend to swing around.
True.
True. That's your jackknife, okay? Red colored glad hands are for the service air supply lines.
False.
False. Yep.
It's the emergency.
You've read the manual. You can teach this class.
No, I don't think so. I'd rather have you do it, sir.
How many times does the manual say you should shift gears while crossing the railroad tracks?
You should never do it.
0. Now, here's what's interesting. The rule that prohibits you and I from shifting on the tracks is specific to hazmat. There's no rule that prohibits us from shifting if we're not carrying hazmat, but the industry doesn't like it. So because the rule in the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations pertaining to not shifting on the tracks, again, is specific to hazmat. But the manual tells you not to shift with anything on the tracks. The industry tells you not to shift with anything on the tracks.
Is that because you might not
Miss-
go get it in gear again?
If you miss a gear, you'd have to stop. If you're an inexperienced person, if they miss a gear, if they miss a shift, they'd have to stop and start all over again. And obviously that puts you at risk of getting hit by a train. Okay? All right, that's my class. Any questions? Test your knowledge boxes. Go through the test your knowledge and what we've given you. Go back in the section of those questions and highlight the correct answers. You have the perfect study guide. Use cdltest.co as a practice and listen to the audio whenever you can, and that'll help you remember the information. Okay? All right, thanks for coming. Have a good day.
Very good.
More importantly, have a safe day. Okay? It's still slippery out there, so be careful.
It's not that bad.
All right, you guys in Hudson, go out the door. Go downstairs, go out the door to the right. Find Mark or Gary, and they will continue your class for the day. See, we have 2 locations, and there are some guys over in Hudson that are still watching the class.
That's why you're